I'm Chris Clark, President and CEO of the Queen Creek Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to Meet the Candidate. Today we're joined by County Supervisor candidate Jevin Hodge. Jevin, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. And to all the viewers today, thank you for taking the time to learn about the candidates running for local office. Deeply appreciate you doing so.
So, Jevin, you're running for Maricopa County Supervisor for this area, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I can definitely do so, Chris. I appreciate it. I'll say this. The Maricopa County Board of Supervisors is the most important, impactful position that most people know absolutely nothing about. And so it's been a delight and an absolute honor to have the opportunity to run for this office. My name is Jevin Hodge. I'm an Arizona native, born and raised here in Maricopa County. I took my first breath at Tempe St. Luke's Hospital in Tempe. I went to high school and elementary school all throughout Tempe, and bought my first home in Tempe. I was fortunate enough to go off to the George Washington University in Washington, D.C., spend some time out there working, going to college, but more importantly, learning about life, learning about people. I had a great time in Washington, D.C., but now I'm back home. Like I said, bought my first home here where I'm a pet owner, homeowner. By day, I serve as a communications consultant. I do social impact work and community engagement work. I work for a firm called Link Strategic Partners, which is a firm based out of Washington, D.C. I lead all of our national operations, and I run our Arizona office. And we do everything under the sun that a communications firm would do. Branding, content creation, graphic design, website design. But what makes us unique is we take those integrated communications theories and tactics, and we use that to engage communities and move communities towards action. Communities being broadly defined, action being broadly defined. So I have large corporate clients like Lyft and GoDaddy and large government agencies to small government agencies, school districts, you name it, nonprofits, for-profits, even down to the individual trying to market their book. Our only litmus test for our clients that we bring on is that it's net positive social impact, so that they're doing good for their community. I also believe that when you're engaged in your community and you want to move your community forward, you have to be involved civically. So I am the proud president of the Booker T. Washington Child Development Center. It's the longest running Head Start facility in the state of Arizona. As a proud president, we're #1 in the state for literacy scores and #1 in the city of Phoenix for K-3 outcomes. And so just deeply proud of the populations we serve. Most of our families, if not all, are several times below the poverty belt. And I pride myself on saying any child can achieve anything when you love them. And with that, I'm the former president and still board member of the Tempe Education Foundation. It's a charitable arm of the Tempe Union High School District. Serve on the statewide leadership board of the United States Global Leadership Coalition, one of the nation's and world's leaders in foreign policy. And I serve on the statewide advisory board for Best Buddies International for the state of Arizona, which is a nonprofit that works to foster inclusion for individuals in the IDD, intellectual and developmental disabilities community. They have a workforce development program, a buddy program like Big Brothers Big Sisters, an adults buddies program, etc. And I volunteer regularly, heavily involved in my church, and just excited to be here.
Wow. Wow. Sounds like you stay pretty busy.
Yes,
and those sound like some great organizations.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, and then why are you running?
Yeah, Maricopa County Board of Supervisors is the governing body for Maricopa County. 5 individuals govern the 4.5 million people in Maricopa County. They manage a budget of $3.05 billion and handle virtually every issue under the sun, from environmental protections to zoning and development, public transportation, public works, public parks, public libraries, public safety, hospitals, education, you name it. If there's a monetary value tied to it, there's budgeting policy related to it, the Maricopa County impacts it in some way, shape, or form. I'm running for District 1, which is the Southeast Valley, parts of South Scottsdale, Tempe, West Mesa, Ahwatukee, Chandler, Gilbert, and Queen Creek, where we are today. And for me, my priorities are simple and straightforward. #1 is infrastructure. And Maricopa County is the fastest growing county in the country. 85,000 people moved here last year. Not insignificant amount of that 85,000 folks moved to the East Valley. So we need to have the infrastructure in place, from our storm and drainage systems, our flood control systems, to our public transportation systems, our buildings and everything that goes along with that, to make sure it supports that growing need so we can be that oasis of opportunity. The next bucket for me is I'm calling well-being. Personal well-being, so that's the health and human services, to make sure that our county health system is the best in the country. We have the best residents. So we need the best healthcare system as well to support that. Educational services, like I said, I'm a proud president of the Booker T. Washington Child Development Center. Maricopa County is one of the largest grantees in the country for early childhood services from the federal government for Head Start. And so how can we expand those services? What can we do to make sure that we level the playing field for our most vulnerable populations? Working with our K-12 schools and working with our community colleges. We have the oasis of opportunity in this district at Arizona State University, the mecca of innovation. So what can we do to make sure that we have educated students and making sure that we're supporting our community college systems so that we can have a thriving system that is as free and affordable as possible for individuals that may want to go to community college or go back to community college to learn a new trade. And what that does is, when you have that personal well-being, it supports the economic well-being and viability of this county. And we need to make sure we have strong local businesses. We need to make sure that we're doing everything that we possibly can to attract organizations, businesses to invest here in Maricopa County, right? And it's twofold, right? You can't attract businesses if they don't have a talented workforce that's healthy and educated. And so we need to make sure that that well-being is working in tandem, and we need to do everything that we possibly can, especially right now. I take it that we'll probably talk about COVID a little bit later, but especially right now to support our mom and pop shops that thrive on engagement, to make sure that they can stay open, make sure that they have the incentives that they need so that we can build our communities for the better, for long term, to make Maricopa County the best place to work, live, play, and grow. And the last piece of this is accountability, and that's very simple and very straightforward. The public has trusted the board to spend their dollars. So that means that they need to maximize the return on their investment. That means that we need to make sure that we are maximizing the opportunity of every initiative that comes out of the county offices. We need to make sure that we are upholding the trust of the people and we're spending the dollars wisely so that they can get the best quality of services possible.
Well, you mentioned, let's take three broad areas.
Please.
So transportation, education, and wellness, not in that order necessarily, but transportation being a big key out here.
That's right.
And so what do you see for the future of transportation, and how do you see yourself impacting that direction?
I love this question. By trade, I serve as a community engagement consultant, right? So what I do is I facilitate very large community engagement processes, and that's what we're going to need. Prop 400 is up for renewal. We have to prepare for Prop 500, but the only way that we can prepare for Prop 500 is if we know the needs and the wills of the community. And I'll tell you this, Tempe's needs are going to be very different than Queen Creek's needs. Gilbert's needs are going to be very different than Mesa's needs, and Chandler's needs are going to be very different than Ahwatukee's needs. And so for me to be the best public official possible, I'm going to have to make sure that I'm directly dialed in and a part of that engagement process so that we can learn the needs of the community and support our businesses, support our localities, to support our institutions that are thriving off of transportation. I mean, we're going to have to do everything, right? This next Prop 500, in my opinion, is going to be the most critical. I mean, we saw in the 80s how transformational it was, right? When we got Prop 200. We saw in the 90s how transformational it was. Well, in the early 2000s, excuse me, when we got 300, right? We saw how transformational 400 was. This right now, with Maricopa County being in the spotlight for the fastest growing county in the country, with Arizona State University being the #1 institution for innovation, with Queen Creek and Gilbert and Tempe and Chandler growing, right? Because people want to live here. We need to make sure our roads are up to par. We need to make sure we have the infrastructure for our freeways that meets that needs. And we need to have public transportation that meets and respects, most importantly, respects the needs of those local communities. Right? Because when you say that you want to do something because it's good here, it may not mean that it's good there. And so we need to meet those needs that it respects that community. And that starts by, I say this all the time, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Right? And that starts by listening to the will and the needs of the community. And that starts by having someone who understands how to engage all populations to make sure that everybody has a voice in this process.
And do you think you'll be able to do that with the Prop 500 money? So 400 is the regional tax. It's expiring in a few years, and we need to get that renewed in order to have that base so that we can continue building our infrastructure here in Maricopa County. Do you think you'll be able to do those objectives inside of Prop 500, or do you see outside revenue sources?
So I think that it's going to be a mixture of both, right? And so when you are a county official, you need to make sure that you're trying to do whatever you can to maximize that investment. So if we have opportunities from the federal government and the state government to increase these efforts, you best believe that we ought to pursue it so that we can make sure that the county residents are getting everything that they possibly can for the dollars that they're investing in Prop 500. And when we're building out, right, the bones, the structure of Prop 500, it goes back to that community engagement piece. We need to make sure that the community is heard, right? When we saw the expansion of the highway out here, the community was heard. When we saw the expansion of light rail in Tempe, the community was heard. We know that transportation is a key issue. We saw just last August in the city of Phoenix that the voters, right, and we've seen when Prop 400 was voted upon, right? Like, these issues are important. Transportation is important, and we're the fastest growing county. So it's making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable to what the communities need and what the communities want.
You touched on wellness a little bit. Dr. Sonnenshine's been leading the way for Maricopa County. Of course, one of the hardest hit by COVID, as you mentioned. And so how do you see the county health program going, and what were you talking about specifically? What do you think is going to be changed?
This is very hard. I've had personal family that's been lost due to the COVID-19 crisis, and it's sad. You know, it's really hard to see, you know, where we are as a country. So what we need to do first is make sure that we're running in tandem. The number one and highest priority for us is to make sure that we have health care that meets the needs of our people, but also healing for our people as well. We've been the hardest hit. You've seen the impacts, right? Our economy has been hurt by it. Our communities have been hurt by it, but overall public morale has been hurt by it. So we need to first and foremost make sure that we have the resources in place that are going to support our communities, right? We need to do everything that we can to invest in our increased testing, both direct testing and antibody testing. But in addition to that, to invest in contact tracing. Testing doesn't do any services if you don't know who the individuals are in contact with. And so contact tracing is so critically important, because if I'm sick and I can't tell you who I've been in contact with and I don't have the support with that, especially from our governments, we're never going to be able to get to a place for our community where we can truly go back to full operation. In addition to that, we need to do everything that we can to provide those support services, right? Providing our frontline workers with the PPE that's needed, but applying pressure where pressure needs to be applied, working with the federal government, working with the state government to get those resources for our frontline workers, right? Our firefighters, our EMS workers, our hospital workers, but also doing what we can for the general public to provide those masks, right? It's simple as that, right? If an individual doesn't have a mask, they need to make sure, especially if they're experiencing symptoms, right? Or they may, or fear of having symptoms. I moved my mother in with me when all this started because she has heart failure. So we needed to make sure that we were doing everything that we possibly can to keep all of us safe, right? This hits home. So we need to do what we can to keep our community safe. We need to work with our county health department. We need to make sure that our community's voices are being heard. I mean, this is so unfortunate, but more importantly, it's so unprecedented. So we're all acting in times that we couldn't have prepared for. The last thing I'll add is that I find very disheartening. I'm a proud American. COVID doesn't see any division. Right? COVID doesn't decide if you are a certain political belief or ideological, you subscribe to a certain ideological mindset, if you subscribe to a certain race or creed, or if you have a certain economic status, you live in a certain community. So that means that we need to make sure that we can come together, even with the people that you disagree with. If you can disagree on 99% of the things, I'm telling you the safety and health of our population is probably the one that you can come together on final solutions. And that's what we need. We need people that are going to be logical, consensus builders, right, that can identify those proactive, pragmatic solutions that is safe, right? And we have so much at stake. I mean, I can go on for this all day, and I'm so sorry, but I'm going to close with this point. We have so much at stake. We need to reopen our economy safely, right? I'm a business executive. I know how we've been hurt, right? We need to reopen our economy safely. We need to get our students back to school safely. Right? We need to get our students back to school safely. I had a teacher that just reached out to me that takes care of her mother who has MS, and she said, you know, you're someone who's involved in the community. Reached out to me on Instagram. What can we do around this? And I said, you know, it's asking your elected officials those questions, right? It's making sure that, you know, your voices are being heard, emailing them, writing them. We need to make sure that we are working multi-jurisdictionally. Right, from the county to the cities, to the school districts, to the state, to the federal government, to be coordinated in a response is so critically important. We will get through this. That I can assure. We will get through this. And the one thing that is proven through any national crisis that we've been faced against is that we always come out stronger than we were before. But right now, we need strong, sound, pragmatic leadership that can help guide us through the process, but also help heal us and unite us, because it's so critically important right now.
Well, that's going to be a tall order.
That's exactly right.
But final thoughts on education. You had mentioned Head Start, K-12, and where the county fits into that.
So I'll start with K-12. I'll start with early childhood. I know this space very well. We are my center is a delegate agency of the City of Phoenix, which the City of Phoenix is a grantee from the federal government, so on and so forth. Maricopa County is a grantee of the federal government as well. It's identifying those opportunities where we can expand services, right, within our education line item and within our health and human services line item. How can we at the county support those dollars that are coming in to expand and make sure that all students, all kids have the opportunity at a quality early childhood education? We know, statistics has shown, years of data has shown, when a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old gets the nurture and education that they need at that age, when they're most malleable, it sets them up for success. And that's what we need to do for all of our kids here in Queen Creek, and we need to do for all of our kids in Tempe, and Mesa, and Ahwatukee, and Chandler, and Gilbert, because when we can expand those services, we will reap the benefits of that for generations. When we can be the first county to increase and make sure that we have an early childhood system that is accessible, right? We're going to reap, our business is going to be supported. Our K-12 education is going to reap the benefits of that. Our secondary education system is going to reap the benefits of that. I mean, it's just so important. For K-12 education, how can the county step in to fill those gaps? Working with the county superintendent of public education, where that office provides a lot of the back-end services. How can we fill some of those gaps to step up? When I talked about multi-jurisdictional partnerships, right, especially in these unprecedented times, how can the Maricopa County government work with School District X and work with Town of Queen Creek, right, to provide wireless services if we have to go to an integrated model, right, where kids may only be able to go to school twice a week? So how can we work to provide those services where we can close the technology gap, provide access and accessibility, work with our for-profit partners like Cox to provide those services? I mean, like, when you think about education, it's much more than just the teacher teaching, but it's all of the wraparound services that supports the well-being and the upbringing of a young person. And for college, right, when you talk about secondary, how can we make sure that we can increase access and opportunity for all residents of Maricopa County, but leverage the resources and jewels that they bring to the table? Arizona State University, the mecca of technology and innovation. Maricopa County colleges and Mesa Community, for example, right? Mesa Community is one of the largest GCs in the country, right? There's so much great things that are happening there. And with the populations that are moving here, folks are wanting to go back to school. Folks are wanting to learn a new trade. Folks are wanting to get an education. When we can make sure that these environments are rich and ready and vibrant, that's how we're going to set ourselves up for preparation moving forward and in the future. And then the last piece of this, right, is learning. There's so much data and research that's happening right now. Dr. Crow has been a pioneer on this. How can Maricopa County learn, right, from our colleges and leverage the resources and data that they're putting out? Maricopa County, the same thing. The community colleges, how can we learn and how can we all work together to create a more vibrant, healthy, safe future for individuals to work, play, retire, learn, tour, do everything here? Because, I mean, this is the greatest county in the country. And we need to showcase that. It's, like I said, the oasis of opportunity.
Well, we appreciate all of that. Anything that we didn't touch on that you would like to add?
I think, I like to close off on a lighter note, if that's okay with you, Chris. I'll leave two things. One, I'm fluently ambidextrous. right? And I say that because it breaks the ice, right? I can do everything with my left hand, that I can do with my right. I grew up in a left-handed household. My mom and my brother are both left-handed. And so I learned to write left-handed early, but I didn't realize that I was actually fluently left-handed as I was right until I broke my right hand playing sports. I was a college track runner and football player, so I learned all that when I was able to do so. I mention that because when you're one hand dominant or 1 foot dominant, you think with one side of the brain or the other. And for me, I'm just as creative as I am logical. And that's what you need, that intersection of creativity and innovation and logic and forwardness in your elected leaders to trust them. And I'll close with this. Regardless of the outcome of the endorsement process, regardless of the outcome of the election, you have an ally in me. This is the community that gave to me. This is the community that I was born in. I took my first breath here. I love this place. And so know that you have an ally in me, you have a friend, and you have a supporter in me. And I look forward to all the great work that we will achieve together.
Well, Jevin, thank you so much for being with us today.
Appreciate
we
you.
appreciate you coming out. Jevin Hodge, candidate for Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. Thank you.